All right, in the last video here, we'll focus a bit on styling the button that we just added. It looks pretty terrible. And then also we'll add in a little message that tells the player that they win. Okay, so right now I did change the colors in between videos, but other than that, everything's exactly the same. This button that says restart is over on the side. It's like incomplete. It just doesn't look good. So we can start there. And I'll show you the changes I made. I just changed the color of the background and the box shadow, and then the same thing when you hover, and that's all I changed. So the first problem we have is that my styles right now are kind of lazy. They're styling all buttons inside of the hangman component, and that works except for the fact that this is also a button, the restart button, and I don't want to style them with some of these same styles, but we do want a lot of them to apply. So what I'm going to do is just get more specific. I'm going to, instead of a class name, I'm going to add an ID and call it reset. And then over here, I'm going to target #reset. And the first thing I'm going to do is set the width to be auto, because right now I have a hard-coded width of 30 pixels for the small buttons, but that's causing problems because it was getting cut off. So now the button is the correct size. And I don't want it to be inline block like the rest of these. So I'm going to set display to be block. So it should go to its own line down below. And it does. And I want it to be centered. So I'm going to set margin left to be auto and margin right also to be auto. And that should center it. There we go. I also want to change the color. I think I'm going to make it purple, so I'm going to change the color of the actual button, the background, and that box shadow to be a slightly darker color. Here we go. So background is purple, box shadow is a slightly darker shade of purple. Just like up here, I had yellow originally and then a darker yellow for the box shadow. I changed it to be this blue color with a darker blue. Same pattern. Oh, looks like I have a syntax error. Make sure I save. There we go. Okay, so this looks better. It's not very nice still, but it looks okay. The only other thing I'll do is add a hover effect. So when I hover over that, I'll just do reset, :hover. I make the whole background of it the same color as the box shadow. And that's what I did with the other buttons as well. So these ones here, they turn the same color as the box shadow when you hover. This purple one goes dark as well. Okay, so there's a couple things to discuss around the logic of our application. Right now, we're not displaying if you actually win. So if you do get it correct, let's cheat and just check what the word is here. Hangman, okay, parade. So let's do A, we'll do R, E, D, and P. So it doesn't actually tell us that we've won anything. So let's begin by figuring out, how do we know when the user has won? What is the condition that is true? And basically, we want to know when this guessed word matches the word that we're storing in the answer. The problem is that guessed word is not actually a string. If you recall, it's an array of strings and potentially underscores. It looks something like this at any given point. It might have like a P and then an underscore if you haven't guessed that letter, and then another underscore, and then, I don't know, something else. So if we're trying to compare this to this.state.answer, it's not going to work. What we want to compare is the string version of this.guessed word. So I'll just not worry about where I'm putting this for now. We'll do it below the buttons and we'll move it. So our paragraph tag will say you win. And when do we want that to happen? We only want it to happen when this.state.answer, actually I'm going to go the other way around. This.guessedWord.join. So that's, if we pass in an empty string, it will turn it back into a single string. If that equals this.state.answer, and since we don't have another option of what we're going to display, I'm just going to do the little shortcut we've seen where we use the logical AND. Okay, so if the guessed word, which is an array, when you join it together as a single word, if it equals the answer in the state, display you win. Oh, I have a little typo somewhere. What's the problem? I'm missing my parens here to actually call guessed word. Okay, so now if I zoom out, let's cheat again. What is the word? Okay, so this time the word is scary. Okay, so let's get that. What am I missing? Y. Now it says you win. So that could be good enough, but what would probably be better is to display you win instead of the buttons, because right now I can keep guessing and eventually I end up with you lose and you win. Okay, so what would be ideal is that we only display the buttons if you're not the winner and you're not game over, you haven't lost. Now, if you do win, we display winner or congratulations, but the buttons are hidden. And if you lose, you guess incorrectly too many times, we hide the buttons, which we're already doing, and we display you lose. So now we have three different things, three choices for what can go right here. So I'd like to rework this. Instead of just displaying you win at the bottom and leaving the buttons there, I'm going to refactor things sort of drastically. It's not so bad. Right here, we're going to render a variable that doesn't exist yet. So I'm just going to delete that, and I'll move this line where we're checking to see if you've won into a variable called, I don't know, isWinner. So we have another Boolean isWinner. So we could actually do nested conditionals inside of this paragraph. I just really don't like doing nested conditionals inside of our render. Instead, what I'm going to do is make a variable, a single one, let's call it game state. So it doesn't exist yet. So we need to initialize that, let game state. And there's three values. So if you haven't won and if you haven't lost, all we should display here are the buttons. So this dot generate buttons. So right now we'll always see the buttons, but then we're going to add a conditional to check if you are the winner, so is winner. We are going to set game state to be, how about you win? And then if game over, we'll set game state to be you lose. Just like that. So now we're just displaying game state here, and we have some logic up here. We set it to be all of the buttons unless you win. We set it to be you win, and if you lose, then we set it to be you lose. This is still kind of clunky because a lot of this could be moved into a separate method like we have for generate buttons. We could create one called, generate game state or something like that, but this is simple enough for now. If we added any more logic here, I definitely would move this into a separate method. Let's just test it out. We should only be seeing the buttons when we haven't won and we haven't lost. So let's lose. Okay, so the buttons are gone. Now if we try and win, I'm gonna cheat once again. Stake, all right. Let's get some wrong on the way just to make sure. We haven't really tested that. And it says you win, and I can't keep clicking, but I can restart. All right. So that's as far as I'm going to go with this hangman. Definitely keep working on this if you'd like. There's a lot of ways of making it better, new features, certainly a new layout and new styles, but also just in refactoring our existing code, this render is getting kind of ugly. Okay, so next up we have another exercise, another game, but it's going to work a little bit differently because I'm not going to give you a bunch of starter code. I'll give you some stuff, but you're going to have to write most of the game logic. In this example, you didn't really have to do much of that. It was more about displaying in the render method.